Good afternoon and welcome again. We're so glad you're here with us. We will start the afternoon in our program today with the playing of America the Beautiful by our pianist extraordinaire, Tom White. Thank you, Tom. Next, we will have the invocation and four-way test with Doug Bolton.
Thank you, President Melinda. From sea to shining sea, that's so amazing. Will you bow your heads with me, close your eyes, take a deep meditative breath, and prepare yourself in your normal custom for prayer. Dear God, we thank you for this opportunity to come together. Thank you for being our creator. Thank you for creating Rotary International and the work that it does all across the world, in our communities, everywhere, in the corners, from sea to shining sea. We thank you, God, for this opportunity to come together in fellowship, to learn, to meet new friends, and to advance our club's operations in every one of our communities. We are so grateful, God, for the blessings that we all share, including this food, its servers, its preparers, and may we partake of it and do it service in your will. In your name we pray, amen. Will you now repeat the four-way test with me? Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Seats?
Thank you, Doug. Doug is our secretary-treasurer and will be in the leadership line coming up. Next, we have a special announcement from Steve Borkenhagen from San Jose. Steve?
Thank you very much. I feel really lucky to be here. I've been really impressed with all of you, making lots of new friends, as I expected I would be, in the true spirit of Rotary. Congratulations to Cincinnati Club for their hospitality and for really welcoming all of us. San Jose is America's 10th largest city. Many of you probably don't know that. and most of you probably don't even know where San Jose is. We're the lost city of a million. San Jose is the only gritty, real urban center of Silicon Valley. Adobe and Zoom are there, just a few blocks from the hotel where those of you who visit us will be staying. Also, we have Apple and Cisco and Netflix and the long list that all of you know. With that, can we show a brief video, and then I'll finish with a couple of other remarks.
How you doing, everyone? I'm Sean O'Kane, and I'm a member of Rotary Club of San Jose, and I'm here to tell you about a great city, a great area, and a great large club conference. Great Rotary clubs do great things, big things, and there's no better place to share ideas, experiences, and to consider new beginnings and disruptive change than in San Jose, the gateway to Silicon Valley. As all of us continue the evolution of Rotary in the post-COVID world, we believe that this location, San Jose, is symbolic of the change, excitement, and possibility that Rotary large clubs will inspire. So here in San Jose, the 10th largest city in the United States, in Silicon Valley just south of San Francisco, home to dreamers and designers, prophets and pioneers, entrepreneurs and visionaries, business upstarts, truth seekers, champions of sustainability, always challenging the status quo, always innovating, a place where big ideas take flight. Where better than San Jose and Silicon Valley? Your large club conference awaits in San Jose, California, September 18th through the 20th in 2022.
Thank you. The real secret is that San Jose is really the smallest town of 1 million people you will ever visit in your life. San Jose is the heart of Silicon Valley, but the heart of San Jose is the Rotary Club of San Jose. So you'll get an express pass right to the heart of all the good things about our community. And we will welcome you. We will treat you like family. We learned a lot about that here in Cincinnati, I might say. And so please join us next year. And if you have any questions, you can call any of us. We're very easy to find in San Jose. So thank you all again.
Thank you, Steve. Next, we will move on to the announcements. Just a few reminders, some that I mentioned earlier this morning. The breakout sessions this afternoon will begin at 2 p.m. Remember the graders card that you have, the gift card that you have in your bag when you came, the $5 gift card. There will be a drawing for it for $100 for those who put their... Okay, so we'll come back to that. Welcome kit. We hope you've enjoyed the welcome kits that Linda and the staff put together for you. Again, if there are any items in there that you can't use or that are not appealing to you, you can bring those to the hospitality suite tonight. Transportation, airport transportation, this is very important. We want to make sure that you get to the airport in time. So check your emails. You may have received an email from David Freeman about transportation on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. So make sure you are at the shuttle at the pickup time on the lower level at the valet parking entrance 2 hours prior to your flight. If you're staying over for the weekend and you're departing on Monday, then the airport, you will have to provide your own services, but we will have services for you on through to Sunday. So check your email again. David Freeman is the name. We also have to-go bags for you as you leave. They will include a waffle from our Taste of Belgium eatery here in the Cincinnati area. We have several locations here. We will have water, fresh fruit, and some other things that you can take with you. There will be some bags this evening at the hospitality suite, as some of you are leaving today. And there will also be bags in the morning from 6 to 9 a.m. in the hotel lobby. So thank you so much again. We enjoy hosting you, and if we can do anything to continue to have you have a comfortable stay here, just let us know. Next, we will have the program introduction by President-elect Steve King.
Thank you, President Melinda. Hello, Large Club Conference. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker today. Dr. Dan Hill is an internationally recognized expert on the role of emotions in politics. In business, in sports, and popular culture, Dan has spoken to audiences in over 25 countries. Dan, and we might have over 25 states here, but I don't think we have 25 countries. To capture and quantify emotions, Dan pioneered the use of facial coding in market research. Starting in 1998, his company, Sensory Logic, has done work for over half of the world's top 100 consumer companies. Dan has had media appearances ranging from ABC's Good Morning America to NBC's The Today Show, CNN, Fox, and many more. In print, Dan has received front-page coverage in the New York Times for his work in pro and NCAA Division I sports, and Dan is the author of 9 books, 2 of which he has brought with him today. Dan, we really welcome you. We're really looking forward to your presentation. Will all of you join me in giving Dan a very warm Rotary welcome?
So first of all, let me say how delighted I am to be here. Quite honestly, 20-some years ago, I first walked into this magnificent hotel, and I said to myself, wouldn't it be wonderful if someday you could talk in the Hall of Mirrors? And lo and behold, I'm here. The second thing is I spoke for the local Rotary Club about 3 years ago, and I've given a lot of speeches, but it's the only occasion in which I actually had tears in my eyes by the time I finished my talk. It was such a warm, receptive, kind audience, so complimentary that it really, truly moved me. And so I am delighted that through Melinda's good efforts, through Linda and so forth, that I am here today. So thank you sincerely. So I am going to talk today about the role of emotions in our lives, particularly in a business setting. And I think I'll start with a quote that's really important to me. Someone once said there are 2 currencies in business. The first is dollars, and the second is emotions. And if you take care of the second one, it's amazing how much better the first one will go for you. The other quote I love a lot is from J.P. Morgan, who said, a person makes a decision for 2 reasons, the good reason and the real reason. And the real reason is very subjective, it is very emotional. And so as you might guess, my talk today, when I say it's about the effective economy, I am talking about your emotions. I am not talking about people who are affected in their behavior. So let us go ahead and begin. I want to talk about emerging patterns, and there's really 2, and they are so fundamental to where our economy is going and the careers that people can have, including as we look ahead to millennials and Gen Z, and how they see their careers unfolding. So there's 2 real patterns here. One has to do with the emerging role of technology, ever stronger, and then tied to that, how we can use emotions to make sure we add value in the workplace and that we protect and enhance our careers. So if we think about these transitions, going all the way back to 1987, the FCC changed it so that the fairness doctrine meant you could now start to be more emotional, more subjective. You didn't have to rationally present, quote unquote, just the facts, ma'am. And that means we've gone from Walter Cronkite to, for instance, Rush Limbaugh and a whole lot of other people. So if you've noticed, the media landscape has changed tremendously in that respect. It also means, just to go to something else from the media, that by 2005, Stephen Colbert coined the term truthiness, that I felt it's true. And if I feel it's true, that's kind of good enough for me, and maybe it's good enough for you. So there is both a serious and a humorous aspect to the fact that we have become much more accepting of the role of emotions in our lives, whether it's personal, political, etc. Emotional intelligence. This book came out just a couple of years before I started my company. But as noted in the introduction, and thanks for the kind words, I have used a tool called facial coding so that there was a metric, a means by which to capture how people's work are feeling so that you can use it as a methodology. You might know it most readily from a show that was on Fox some years ago called Lie to Me. I was trained by a man named Paul Ekman. Kel Lightman was the leading character in the show. They didn't go very far in Hollywood to figure out a name for the protagonist. It is used in that case in detective work, but it has so many applications as I'll be talking about. Something else is we've made this move into the future. This is Garry Kasparov, then the world chess champion. This is just after he gave up and lost to Deep Blue, IBM's computer, in chess. Not even someone at the top of his profession could hold on just by IQ alone. That you needed something more. You need, quite specifically, you need EQ actually to take yourself forward. It is that same year, by the way, that in Japan, the first emojis appeared on our telephones, our mobile devices. And we all obviously use them a great deal. 2001, going back, Steven Spielberg puts out AI, the movie about artificial intelligence. I don't imagine it's by chance that he really wanted the movie to come out that year, because of course another earlier great movie was 2001, A Space Odyssey. That made it seem as if technology and all of this sci-fi wizardry was out there somewhere in outer space. And where we've moved to is that wizardry is really close at hand. It is right in our lives. It is not a science fiction fantasy. It is something we all need to contend with, we all need to try to understand and to profit by. It is also true that something came out called Facebook. We have likes, we have shares. We want to say what experiences we are having. So the game has moved much more in that sort of direction as the accepted lexicon. So just the facts, ma'am, this is another nail in the coffin of thinking that's our approach. It just isn't anymore. And two last things. I think one of the reasons we've also moved, quite honestly, into more of a feeling economy, more of an effective economy, is because we've found that the experts are not always experts. And I'm mentioning, for instance, the Great Recession. I could count on two hands, probably on one hand, how many people on Wall Street predicted this. Very few experts. In fact, this is the moment people in China have told me that they said, I'm not sure the West is on top of its game as much as we imagined, that there is an opportunity for us because, you know, your so-called experts led us all into the gutter, led us all into the ditch. And so I think that's another thing that's pushed this direction. Finally, one last rather striking thing. In Saudi Arabia in 2017, they took a humanoid robot and they made it an honorary citizen of the country. That's how far this has progressed already. So I want to talk about not you as a robot, I want to talk about you as a human being, and I want to talk about what you can do that helps your life for that matter, but certainly your career. So where we are really moving to, quite honestly, is the 1990s, the 1900s rather, machines really took over what we could manually do. My family is farming stock by background. You were out there in the field and you pitched the hay and you made things happen. Where we have moved to now is that the computers are going to essentially dominate and potentially replace our left brain. It means our right brain, our creativity, our abilities at collaboration. That's what's so essential to the future. The reason I started my company was, ironically, someone from IBM sending me an article about the breakthroughs in brain science and how much we are intuitive, sensory, emotional decision makers. The killer statistic, and there was one, was that the conservative estimation, was that at least 95% of our mental activity is not fully conscious. I just confirmed this with a neuroscientist last week. They're now agreeing it's actually 98 to 99%. I mean, it's almost the entire game. If you think someone occasionally has a blind spot, you're being modest about it. We have huge blind spots. We are not not Mr. Spock from Star Trek. We are Homer Simpson from The Simpsons. We make decisions out of altruism and greed and laziness and probably, quite honestly, stupidity. And those biases and those blind spots impact us immensely. I think it's rather liberating because now we can actually admit who we are rather than pretend we're something other. But it means we have to navigate it. We have to make our ways forward, and that's what I want to talk about. In the economy we have that is emerging, how can you best approach it? So, emotions, by the way, they drive everything. What you remember is emotionally laden. It mattered to you. Because otherwise, the brain, quite honestly, is kind of like a paper shredder. We get rid of as much as we can, as fast as we can, because if it's not terribly relevant, forget it. If you want to talk about motivation, if you go back to Latin, movere, the verb movere, to move, to make something happen, is the root word for both motivation and emotion. That's how central it is. In business, do we want things to happen? Yes, we do. Therefore, you have to bring people with you. Loyalty is a feeling. It's a feeling. And finally, persuasion. You may win them over on the facts, but good luck. You're much more likely to win them over if you can combine facts with making the emotional dynamics work well. So, emotional intelligence is important. AI is here to stay. HI is human intelligence. Put the two together and you have an advantage. You might think that a 6% edge, which is what I've been told by the experts in the field, isn't so big. Well, I happen to be a tennis player. I've been on Tennis Channel twice with Mary Carrillo, and I've talked to experts in the field, and it turns out, lo and behold, the top players in the world, we're talking Roger Federer, Serena Williams, they only win on average 53% of their points in their matches. That's how narrow the margins are. If you look at presidential campaigns, the last several, most of the margins, all but one in fact, are less than 6%. So 6% is not giving you some hyperbole over the moon, but it's a real solid number actually. It can really make a difference for you. So let's talk about it. In terms of emotional intelligence, there's really 3 steps. You have to perceive emotions, including your own, but certainly read the people around you. Former President LBJ once said, if you can't walk in the room and know who's with you and who's against you, you ain't worth spit as a politician. I think in business, particularly if you are a leader, a salesperson, anytime you got to read the room, you better be perceiving emotions. It's helpful not just at the poker table. Next thing, do I actually understand emotions? Okay, I picked up the data, but what does the data mean? Big question. We're going to try to talk about that a bit. That leads you then to have the setup to manage emotions and really, truly get ahead. So sometimes we look at the body, I admit it. I happened to be in my dentist's office one time, and I was thumbing through Sports Illustrated waiting for my appointment, and this is a hockey streaker at a game. And outside of some Dutch paintings from the 17th century, I don't think I've ever seen so many facial expressions in one image in my life. There's two things I particularly love about this. One is how often the couples have a similar response. Some couples are amused, some are horrified, some are merely surprised, but they are so often on the same page emotionally, which is really great for the relationship. The other one is, and you can't see it very well, she's in the very lower right-hand corner, and her expression says, "Thanks for sharing." As in, not. So the truth is, though, and I don't say this just because I'm a facial coder, we look at faces. We look at faces all the time. I have done work for all these major brands, and not only using facial coding, I was the first US company to use eye tracking to figure out where people look. Because what is visually obscure or invisible is emotionally obscure or invisible. You've got to make a connection both times. So I've also published a book on art, people's intuitive reactions to famous art. And in eye tracking, which you may not be familiar with, when you have the reds that means the most people looked the most time at that part of the artwork. Yellow's down a notch, green down another notch, black, they basically didn't look there. Got to have a color. So American Gothic, it's based on the fact that Grant Wood was driving through a small town in Iowa named Eldon, which happens to be the first name of my dad, and he saw the Gothic window, and he put it into the painting, and it's the title of the work, basically, American Gothic. Do people look at the window? No, they do not. They instead look at the face of Grant Wood's dentist, who's standing as the farmer, and Grant Wood's sister, who is, the wife, supposedly. Thomas Gainsborough, and I'm not trying to give you an art history lesson, but Thomas Gainsborough hated doing portraiture. He liked doing landscapes. This was the richest couple in the village. He needed the money. He agreed to paint them. What did he do? He shoved them over to the left side of the canvas. He didn't even finish the canvas, by the way. If you look at where her hands are, that's raw canvas. He didn't even finish the painting. Well, the joke's on him, because where did people look? They did not look at his beloved landscape. They looked at the faces. Faces, faces, faces. In my work, I have found that 70% of the gaze activity and 70% of the emotional attention goes to the face if there's a face evident. That's how powerful it is. There are reasons for that. Think about it. The face is the headquarters of our body. 4 of our 5 senses are located there, everything but touch. It tells you gender, race, age, at least approximately. It gives you some sense of the person's physical attractiveness. It can even tell you their health, because our faces tend to be asymmetrical to the extent we've had a disease or a health issue that was profound enough. But the real kicker is it tells you how they're feeling, and it gives you clues to their personality over time. Because it all comes down to, are you with me or are you against me? We need to know that to run our business successfully. We need to know that to manage our offices. So from totem poles to everything else, faces are absolutely essential to the human experience. So just like the face gets 70% of the action, of these core emotions that you can pick up through facial coding, it turns out that 2 of them get 70% of the activity. For most of us, and there are exceptions, but for most of us, 2 emotions, anger and happiness, are the real game. Anger because we want to control our destiny. We want to make progress. And to the extent that we can't make progress, we get irritated or even outraged potentially. In a word, anger is, I want to hit. Happiness, on the other hand, is I want to hug. I want to embrace. I want to collaborate. I'm open to consideration. Happy people tend to be better at brainstorming, and they get to superior solutions and more quickly. It has economic value to you, though there can be a downside. If you are a happy camper, you can also be kind of oblivious to the details, which can trick you up. Every emotion has an upside and a downside. There are no such things as positive emotions and negative emotions. There is context and degree. That's what actually matters. We have one other approach emotion, sadness. We aren't approaching to hug or hit, but we long to be hugged. So we might feel disappointed, abandoned, a sense of hopelessness. We are waiting for someone to scoop us up and make us feel better. It can also be an emotion that helps us ponder things. It's as if it's nature's way of saying, something bad happened, don't rush into the next mistake. So it has a value to it. Surprise and fear are both reactive emotions, and they show remarkably similarly on the face. And I think there's a reason for that. So surprise is an orienting emotion. We got a new car for Christmas. We got a new car accident on the way home from work. Something changed. We have to pay attention. We have to adapt. We don't necessarily like to adapt because guess what? That requires energy. Our brain is merely 3% of our body mass. It consumes 20% of our calories. Human beings would love to save energy. We are essentially wired to be, if possible, much more like house cats. We want to sit around all day, if only we could. If only we could. Surprise means we have to expend energy, and we therefore often feel fear because, am I up to the task? Can I do it? Can I make the pivot? Can I make the adjustment? So they're very similar. And then there's two others, disgust and contempt, and they are rejection emotions. That means I'm backing off. I'm trying to protect myself, trying to protect my pocketbook. Something smells bad, tastes bad, don't trust you. If trust is the emotion of business, contempt is its opposite. Don't trust you, don't respect you, find you beneath me. By the way, I also call it not just the emotion of bankruptcy, it's also the emotion of divorce. At the University of Washington, Seattle, they have something called the Love Lab. They use facial coding for marriage counseling. With 15 minutes of videotape facially coded, they have a 90% accuracy rate if the couple will stay married. 90%. I have used facial coding in speed dating. We have 100% accuracy if the man or the woman wants a second conversation with the other party, because you give it away on your face how you actually feel. You can say whatever you want to say, but actions speak louder than words, and on your face is what's really going down. As you might have guessed by now, no one plays poker with me. So, happiness. Walt Disney. What is Disney promise? That our product is actually a feeling. It's the happiest place on earth. By the way, in his career, Walt made changes to Mickey over time. His head got bigger because it's a nice canvas on which to show the emotions. And the smile got bigger because guess what? As Walt got richer, just coincidentally, Mickey got happier. Eminem the rapper, really good sign of anger. Shows a lot of anger. I did a book on celebrities. Lots of anger there. Bottom left, sadness. This is actually taken from the recent 9/11 commemoration. This is some of the fire people. And I'm happy to be here, not because I just love the setting, and I'm really grateful to the Rotary Club. I was supposed to be in the Twin Towers on 9/11 for a meeting with Amex. And the key person could not make the meeting, and we canceled it. I do not remember which floor we were supposed to be on, but I would have been in that building that morning. So 9/11 is a little personal for me, as it is, I think, for really all of us, quite honestly. Spurning emotions. If you look at photographs of Elvis Presley, honest to God, the guy shows disgust an awful lot. The upper lip curls. I don't know if it's the poor circumstances he came from, the rejection he sometimes favored for being from the other side of the tracks. Whatever it may be, I can't say that I know everyone's personality and life story inside out, but that's really common for Elvis Presley. That's Lindsey Vonn, the Olympic skier, and she gives off a lot of smirks, a lot of contempt. So does Tom Brady, for that matter. A lot of really great athletes, they're on that fine line between being confident and cocky. If they're your teammate, you love it. If they're your opponent, you probably hate them for it. Just how it works. And finally, I couldn't resist taking an electric socket for surprise, because our eyes go big and our mouth drops open. It's kind of like nature's way of saying, why don't you shut up and actually pay attention to what's going on around you? And then Natalie Portman, who's had a very successful career, educated at Harvard, shows a lot of fear on her face. And the best explanation I can find is that she had very demanding parents, and that she may feel like she's always trying to live up to what they wanted her to achieve in life. So it gets to be an issue of self-esteem. Even when you're really accomplished, you can still feel that way. You feel what you feel, whether it's rational or irrational. I mentioned motivation and emotions earlier. Two organizational psych people at Harvard said really you could take Maslow's hierarchy and you could spin it another way, and you could take these four motivations, and I think you could probably apply emotions to them. That if I'm looking to bond, I want to hug or be hugged, so happiness and sadness go together well. If I'm trying to defend myself and stay alive, fear makes a lot of sense. If I want to learn, I'm acquisitive, I'm opening my eyes, I'm reaching out, I'm exploring. And if I want to acquire, well, remember, anger is often about, I want to control my destiny and I want to move ahead under my own terms. So I think you can make a lot of correlations here, potentially. And then there is over time. As George Orwell said, by the age of 50, a man has the face he deserves. You know, we can be a happy camper. We can be a sad sack. There's muscle memory. So things that we feel repeatedly, they show up over time. One of the funniest moments for me, because I've done a lot of work in politics, is, and another instance where I'm fortunately happy to be here, is you might remember the bridge went down in Minneapolis some years ago. I passed under it 1 minute before it went down. 1 minute before it went down. A couple weeks later, I'm in Iowa, and John McCain is speaking, and he's complaining about how we haven't taken care of our infrastructure, which is true. And John says, it makes me really mad. And I was sitting really close to John. I thought, I've got to try to keep a poker face because John gets mad all the time. And I wanted to start laughing when John said it made him angry, because that's his default emotion. This is a guy, after all, who was a boxer when he was in the US Navy. John liked to hit. Now, I like John a lot in a lot of ways, but that was his personality. That was his mode of being. So the emotions, signature emotions, give you a really good clue to who somebody is. In summary, a couple of things. As I mentioned earlier, we're not so much Homer Simpson, not so much Mr. Star Trek, but we are Homer Simpson. We are not Rodin's The Thinker is really what I wanted to say there. That's the lie we've lived with in Western society for basically 3 centuries, ever since Rene Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. Actually, the origin of the brain, it's a small node atop the spinal column. It's our sense of smell. That's the origin of the brain. I have the capacity to smell, and therefore I can think. That is how profoundly we are sensory emotional decision makers. By the way, women have a much better sense of smell. They've done tests. In about 80% of the cases, women are better at smell. So if they're the better cooks often, there could be a reason for that. How much are we emotional in our decision making? I've always loved this quote from Clarence Darrow. I don't like spinach, and I'm glad I don't, because if I liked it, I'd eat it, and I just hate it. That's the voice of truth. And finally, this might be the first time you're hearing about facial coding, but you're going to hear a whole lot more coming forward. This is going to be baked into AI. It's already happening. There's a company in China tied to the government that's valued at $20 billion that is automating facial coding. They are not using it in ways that I favor. I brought it into business because I wanted companies to be more sensitive and more responsive to their customers and their employees. But there are lots of other applications, some in business, some in the military, and so forth. For instance, I know from government sources, people in the defense industry, they are now facial coding using automation, which is coming on. They are now using facial coding 24/7 to monitor the cadets at West Point. They want to know what's their EQ level, how emotionally adaptive they are. I know from people out in the West Coast that it's probably less than 10 years before we're going to have TV sets that watch us as we watch them. That a commercial will play, and that sponsor will see how you react to the first commercial at the first break. If you don't really like it that much, they'll switch to another commercial on the next break. That's where the technology is moving to. So Apple, Facebook, Microsoft, this is all over the place. I can even tell you a last quick story. So I am at the Great Wall. I'm going to speak the next day in Beijing for the American Chamber of Commerce. And we're in a little tour group up at the Great Wall. And someone says to me, what do you do for a living? I knew right away they were an American because a person from France would say, what's your favorite wine? But instead they wanted to know what I did for a living. And I said, well, I'm a market researcher. And they looked rather bored. And I knew that because I'm a facial coder. And I said, well, I do it a bit differently. I look at people's faces. And he goes, oh, micro expressions, which is when the expression flips across the face really quickly. And I said, well, that's not exactly a household term. What do you do for a living? He said, well, officially I work for Halliburton. Unofficially, I'm the substation chief for the CIA in Saudi Arabia. And I use it for interrogation and surveillance purposes. And I can only tell you this rather than kill you by the fact that I'm about to retire and return home to Toronto. So this is really going to be lots of places in your life. And the way to stay ahead, And the way to look out for your marriage or your relationships is emotional intelligence aided by facial coding. So I thank you so much, and I'm delighted to be here once again. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Do you want? I've been told we have some time for questions. I have no idea how much time I've used up, but I know I'll get yanked from the stage when the time comes. So if people have questions, I know we're not that easily set up for microphones, but this is actually my favorite part of the talk. So I see somebody over here, middle table.
Got one?
Yeah.
Hi, thank you very much. That was very interesting. You mentioned that smell is the basis of the brain. With COVID, right? So I'm wondering what kind of impact, because the long haulers apparently are still having issues with smell. Is that going to have an impact on their thinking?
Yes, it will, although the brain has amazing adaptive abilities. So there are parts of the brain that kind of map to each of our senses. And the brain kind of doesn't like vacant lots, just like city planners don't. And so if some sense is being underutilized, other senses will kind of grab the real estate in effect, and they will replace and supplement what it's not getting from that sense. So although it has potentially some detrimental impact, it's not necessarily, I would say, fatal, therefore. Now, what was interesting to me as a facial coder is when we've been wearing masks a lot. Because it turns out that a lot of our expressions go away for us. There are 23 expressions through facial coding that you can get to that reveal these 7 emotions. 2/3 of them are around the mouth. Only 1/3 of them are around the eyes. And around the eyes, you particularly pick up actually fear and surprise, because once again, you're trying to pay attention. Your eyebrows lift, so your field of vision expands, your eyes go wide. You lose much of happiness and sadness and fear and so forth elsewhere on the face. A lot of information goes away. A lot of information. So it's been a trying time in a lot of ways. So it's a really minor footnote that it'd be trying as a facial coder. But for all of us, we've had to struggle with that. On the other hand, Zoom calls are a great opportunity to play Hollywood squares and try to see who else is on the call and how they're feeling if you want to pay attention. So very good question.
Yes, you've spoken about emotional intelligence. And so my daughter has autism.
Sure.
And so that's extremely difficult and can't understand other people's emotions. Is there anything coming down the pipeline that can help those that have those types of disabilities?
That's an excellent question. There was 2 scientists at MIT who actually began their research on facial expressions with the autism application, and was tied into Cambridge University in England. The sad news is they got the whiff of money in terms of an answer to your question, and they found that they could make more money by turning to business applications. So I think the interest still exists. And in fact, one of those 2 co-founders who's much more interested in that application has left the company and is investigating, but I'm not aware of anything that's necessarily materialized so far. But because I think that there's so many applications, much of what we have in life has actually been a spin-off from NASA, from military applications, and then it's made its way into our lives. So I am ultimately hopeful. There's been a detour, or it's gone slower, but I am hopeful that there will be that opportunity. It's just not here right now. Yeah.
Hi. I wanted to ask, so it's been notated and shown that AI and facial recognition and things like that really don't work well on black and brown faces.
Yes.
So what is being done to make sure that those things are changed and accurately for more than 50% of our population, that these things don't really work well for us?
That's an excellent question. I'm really happy to go there. So speaking of MIT, there is a woman with a very complicated last name, but her first name is Joy, who has published on this issue repeatedly, and it's a real scandal. So let me explain a bit. There's really 2 stages here. One is face recognition, which is your identity, And then there is facial coding, which is how do you feel. So the facial recognition is, generally speaking, a lot further ahead, and it is largely accurate except for exactly the situation you're talking about. And I think the problem there is that the data sets, for instance, have been overwhelmingly not just Caucasian, they've been white males. For whatever reasons, they have utilized that over and over and over. I mean, I have traveled to over 85 countries. I have spoken in many, many countries. I lived in Italy as a boy where I was literally an outsider. My father worked for the 3M company. I was assigned to a film processing plant in Italy. I suddenly found myself in Italian first grade in a fishing village. I did not know the language. I was an outsider. So I am very sensitive to the fact that everyone who's ever felt like an outsider in a situation or a society should be accorded respect. And that in this instance, the software, for instance, needs to get a whole lot better. I'm afraid, that there are too many instances where not just the data set, but the executives approving the decisions and the data scientists working on it are all of the same persuasion, so to speak. And without a journalist, someone writing like Joy, they haven't taken that seriously as they should. If you switch over to facial coding automation, a coder who learns this manually and is certified like I am and has the aptitude for it can be at about 90% accuracy. That person can fight through any of the sort of shortcomings the software might have. It is true that if the lighting is poor, a person of color may be a little bit more difficult to see, but a manual coder can work with that. The software, however, has not made the same accommodation. The best software I can find to date, it's climbed, but if I answer this question 10 years ago, I would have said the facial coding automation was no more than 35 to 40% accurate. It's now about 50% some accurate. Still got a long ways to go, but that is a problem for it. And so you are absolutely right, and they should be trying to rectify it. I hope that they will, but I don't control Facebook and Microsoft and all of those places. I just hope that their sense of justice and humanity and a whole bunch of other things like that will cause them to do what they need to do here. Yeah, because it is going to impact people's lives. The software will be used, and to the extent that it's faulty, that's shortcoming people. Absolutely. So I take that very seriously. Excellent question.
My question was similar to hers regarding people with neurodivergencies, but mine was more about the facial coding and the interpretation of, the misinterpretation of a lot of neurodivergent people and their emotions. How is it still accurate? And do people consider that when they're reading people's faces who have neurodivergencies?
Whether they take that into account and are appropriately sensitive to it, I'm sure depends on the situation and the person. I would like to be more optimistic than I might actually be as to whether or not they practice that. I think a really important thing is someone who's tried to be faithful to the tool and its potential to be sensitive to others is that you always have to look at context. You have to baseline a person. You need to see what's characteristic of them, what are the triggers, how they're responding to something. If I felt the tool didn't seem like it fit the occasion, one would need to make the adjustments. I can broaden it a bit into a patterns we've seen over time for you, if you don't mind. We've seen 4. One is people say something and they don't feel anything. For instance, I stopped doing it, but I used to actually do things for the networks looking at criminals. But my father called me one time after I'd been on the air and said, "Are you having any fun doing this?" And I said, "No. These people are ruining my sense of human nature." So I stopped doing it. But what I saw was that criminals very often did not emote because they didn't care about the people they were harming. And that was unfortunate. I did find that certainly there are times where how people feel and what they emote go together. That's the least of these 4 categories, the least of them. I also see that there are instances where people say something and how they feel kind of matches up, but there's a lot of ambiguity. And I think that's where some of the sensitivity comes in. We don't typically show just one emotion. We typically show more than one emotions. And if you're really good at this and you really care about it, you start looking at the sequences and how it all maps together. And the last one is what I call the say-feel gap. They said something and they felt something else. If you've never been lied to in life, congratulations. You're either really lucky or you're not paying attention. So I'm not trying to answer glibly. I mean, I think it really is beholden on the person who's trying to utilize this, and I would hope that they are sensitive. I'm going to give you a really serious answer, even beyond the fishing village, and Italian first grade is why I'm in this field. As we were leaving Italy to come back to the States, I'm 7 years old, and I don't know if this was a good idea or a bad idea, but my parents took me to Dachau, the concentration camp, just north of Munich. And I will remember to my dying day standing at one of those remaining ovens and putting my hand on the door and looking at the large blow-up photographs of, what happened at the camp. And I said to myself, this is unfortunate. I think I was smarter at 7 than I ever was again. I said to myself, this is unfortunately the terrible things that people will do to other people when they have power over them. And that is, if you want to ask me the core reason why I do this, it's probably that. Because shortly thereafter, we were in Amsterdam, and we went to the Anne Frank house. And I was a little boy, and here's a young girl, and she was a writer and a reader like I am. And that journey, those few days, really directed my career, they directed my value system, they directed what I hope is my sensitivity to people who are going through whatever conditions in life. And so that's my very non-glib answer to your question, and I can only hope that other people will try to honor that kind of sensitivity for others. So, one last question, I'm told. Okay, somewhere out there. Oh, yes.
Okay, well, it's unfortunate on the last question. Let's just go ahead and be clear about that, because all of these questions have been very thoughtful and introspective, and you have very genuine answers, and so I'm apologizing in advance. What I really want to know is, can you learn to beat it? Like you were talking about poker, can you learn to beat Facebook? Can you learn to school your expressions, or is there always a tell that gives you away?
The face is the only place in the body where the muscles attach right to the skin. It is quick, real-time data. We also have more facial expressions than any other species on the planet. So I have done executive coaching. I did work on the 2012 Mexican presidential race. And by the way, I'll give you a quick story there. So I'm looking at they only have one debate. They have a much more sane, brief presidential race. And I looked at 100 voters, and when I presented to them, I said, this person, you're gonna win, but you're gonna win by this much, and you're kind of directing your artillery at the wrong person. And I got done, and the man said to me, "You're wrong, Mr. Hill. In fact, you're dead wrong. You don't know the country, you don't know the issues, you don't know the candidates, you don't even know Spanish." And I said, "Yeah, but I know faces." And I was off by half a percentage point. Half a percentage point. Not dead wrong, kind of dead right. I was trying to give the candidate a sense of how people responded to him because he was kind of glib. And although they had lots of financial advantages, people weren't really warming to him. But I've never tried to Frankenstein someone. I do believe in the importance of authenticity. So we can kind of move there, but not necessarily a great deal unless I think we pick up emotional intelligence. So for instance, there was a CEO of a major company, actually in this state, that I showed him and explained to him the importance, the significance of what he was showing on his face. And I said, if you show that to the media, you show that to your employees, because there was a lot of contempt for one thing, I said, you're going to kind of make people back off from you. They're not going to be inclined to bring their ideas forward. And without their ideas and their collaboration and their engagement with you, you're not going to do as well in your career, and the company's not going to do as well. He actually because once he understood its importance, he actually pivoted, and by the time I next did the exercise with him, he had vastly improved. It was a much warmer, more engaging personality. I'd like to think he found it internally. Did I give him a little nudge? Yeah, I probably did. But that would be my essentially answer. We can change somewhat, but often people need to, there has to be something that takes them there. And in that respect, my favorite comment regarding whether or not people will change is, it's not that we see the light so much as we feel the heat. And I think that's often how it works. That's why more of our emotions are quote unquote negative, because we want to survive and thrive. We pay attention to bad news more loudly typically. It's just how human nature is wired. Just, it is. So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dan, for that great presentation. As a result of your presentation to us this afternoon, the Rotary Club of Cincinnati will give a donation to the eradication of polio to Rotary International in your honor. So thank you very much. We will also give you a theme pin for this year, and our theme is Serve to Change Lives. And so thank you very much again.
Thank you.
I have a specific announcement. If your president, executive director, president-elects, if your executive director did not attend the meeting today or at the conference at all, please see Christy Suzik, who is our administrative assistant. She will be outside the door. We have a t-shirt for him or her that you can take back to your executive director. So please make sure you see them. Beautiful t-shirts that Linda designed. And I think they would appreciate getting it. We really miss having them here with us. The afternoon sessions, again, will begin at 2 o'clock, and so please consult the inside of your program to see which session you will be attending, and also for the instructions for this afternoon, where we will be attending a great presentation at the Sign Museum. And also the hospitality suite will be open after that. So thank you very much. Make it a great session. Meeting adjourned.
This is a good thing, not a bad thing. So we wanted to take a minute, President Melinda and I, but a whole bunch of other people as well. And I'm going to ask Linda Booth, who doesn't know anything about this,
That's part of the error because we were trying to keep this a secret from Linda, so my apologies.
It's okay. It's good to have surprises. So I just want to say a few words. And a lot of people here and a lot of other executive directors in particular know Linda quite well over the years. And you probably know, a lot of participants here may not know, that Linda has been our executive director here for 10 years. 10 years this November 1st. So, and just having the chance to be president of this club last year, and you know, I said in the panel yesterday, I can remember being at the large club conference in Chattanooga 2 years ago, and Linda and I were there, and obviously you're building a partnership. Not that we hadn't already known each other, but you really build a partnership between the president-elect and the executive director. And you know something about your own strengths, and you're learning something about the other person's strengths. So I can tell you that by nature, I'm more of an operations person in terms of getting things done, but I'm not that creative a person. Now, Linda has an amazing combination of skills. Super creative, very organized, and executes well. And you can see that in this large club conference. It was very obvious. So Linda, thank you so much for that. And the other thing I'd say is, you never know what's coming next, and obviously in October of 2019, none of us knew what the last Rotary year was going to be like, and everybody's been adjusting to that, and still adjusting through that. And I couldn't have asked for a better partner in crime in terms of being able to make the adjustments and come up with ideas. Again, very, very creative, and you know, for all the good things I can say about you, Linda, and all the good things that you've done for a large club conference and your large club partners, but all the things you've done for our club. The thing that I'd say is the most important is that you love our members. You love our club members and they love you. And that's a connection that you can't replace. Some people say that somebody's 110% committed to a job. That's an understatement with you. You are way above 110%. So on behalf of the people here at the Large Club Conference We have a present in terms of cards that people have filled out, and some of our club members have filled these out as well, so thank you very much. We appreciate it. And we appreciate you. And also from our club, there's a special gift card here in appreciation for those of us who've been with you for a number of years. Thank you so much, Linda.
And of course, we will have a special presentation for Linda for the club later on from our personal club. That's one gift from us. And now from the large club conference, we have a presentation for Linda as well.
Hey everybody, I'm Erin Kelly. I'm from Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I had the honor of hosting this party a couple of years ago, and it's a lot of work. And you have enthusiastically and wonderfully put together a great team. Thank you, Melinda, and your team. What a great conference. But through the years, she has really pumped us up and helped us get things done. She streamlined our registration system, among other things, and just been a great helper to a lot of us. Thank you, and we have a prize for you.
All right, didn't know I'd be talking. But thank you all for attending. It's a COVID year. It's very hard. We weren't able to get together in Austin. This has been very hard to plan, not knowing if we were going to have to do it virtually, we were going to be able to have it at all, or if we were going to be able to get together like we have. So, I cannot say enough about your enthusiasm and your ability to just show up and come and visit with us, because this has been 5 years in the planning, and when you have to plan and shift because you don't know how it's going to run, you've all been enthusiastic and put up with all of my emails. So I just want to say thank you. We hope that you have felt that we've treated you like royalty here in the Queen City, and we really look forward to a great wrap-up session tonight at the Sign Museum. It's a spectacular venue, and we look forward to wrapping things up tonight. Thank you all.
Thank you. Now meeting fully adjourned. Thank you.